Hey guys, welcome back to Embrace the Question. We are still doing our series on Bible study with me. We're still at the very beginning. We've got one video under our belt and one study under our belt. So this is a continuation of Genesis chapter 1, and we are on day 5. We are making our way through. We're talking about what we know to talk about, and we're studying up some new things. Thank you for joining me. Again, if you haven't seen the first one, you might want to go back and listen to the first video first, and then keep clicking. All right, let's start day number 2. All right, again, we're using eSword here. I'm in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, on verse 19. We're on day 5 of creation. I said day 2 a minute ago, but what I meant was day 2 of our study. So here we go. And God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the 5th day. Interesting, isn't it? Now, if we talk about 5, the number 5, typically in the Old Covenant context, it's a number for law. Torah has 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. In the New Covenant context, it's a number for grace. You have the 5 offices of the church. Let's see if I can name those. This is apostle, prophet, teacher, pastor, evangelist. Okay, 5. So we get these. We have these representations that we need to just kind of keep in mind as we go forward. 5. But this one's different. We see "be fruitful and multiply" for the first time here. There's nothing very obvious other than God has just created all the swarmers, things that engulf. If you ever been in a swarm of gnats, get those a lot here in the U.S. Gnats. That's no fun. You can't get away from it. You can't get away from the swarmers. Swarm of mosquitoes. Some of you from Canada know all about mosquitoes and big ones. He mentions birds and fish, things that are just plentiful, and they multiply easily. That's interesting to me, because does Paul not often say, "Grace be multiplied to you"? Things that are all-encompassing. Well, one of the things that's all-encompassing in the Old Covenant is the law. The law. There were exceptions, but for the most part, the law was a part of everything they did. Okay? So let's keep going. That was day 5. Think day 5 grace, or day 5 law. It's the method of government, maybe. Okay? And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. you shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. That's a lot. That's a lot that went down on the sixth day. We all know, I'm going to say that probably way too often. We all know. We all may not know. Many of us know that day 6 is the number of man. 6 is the number of man. Day 6 is when man was created, along with a lot of other things, as we see here. He made man in his image. Now, the image of God is a topic that goes from start to end. It's something that is not appreciated enough by people because we're people and we think like sometimes we don't think at all. But the image of God is everything. Now, the image of God, if you're created in the image of God, that doesn't mean you are God. But the minute he gives you his essence, then the image takes on an entirely new meaning. Now he's got representatives. See, it's one thing to look like, it's one thing to bear the image of, and that's important, and that's not to be devalued. But when you have the Spirit of God in that, then all of a sudden you have a direct relation to God. I said a representation of, and that's true. But you have an ambassador. You have a relationship. You have a son or a daughter. You have someone who can do the work of God with the authority that he gives. Just having the image is important. But that was always devalued. Now, when you're talking about the image, so God created man in his own image. It was a lot more of a big deal to the Jews. They focused on this kind of thing. Oh, you are in God's image. I will lavish hospitality upon you and your family. Or, you're a Samaritan. Samaritans are less than. They are not even quite human. They are not in God's image. Which wasn't true. Jesus came along and proved the opposite of that. But that was the debate of the day, one of the debates of the day. A lot of the rabbis with authority clashed on that very topic of who bears the image of God. Do the Romans bear the image of God? I apologize for the glare. I am going to do something about the glare. It bothers me. I'm sure it bothers you. So God creates man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Many say that the correct interpretation is that he created Adam, male and female. And I think if you really understand Genesis, that's exactly what he did. He created Adam as both. Why? Because we will learn here in a chapter or two, that he's going to remove a rib from Adam and create Eve. Yeah, it's a Bible, it's a Sunday school story, right? We know about that story. So Adam here is created, and the boundary is not yet set. Remember, he created all of these things: the skies, the waters, the everything like that, and then he set boundaries. The light, the skies, the waters, the light. He sets boundaries after he creates each one of them. He's doing the same thing. He's creating man in his own image, in the image of God, And then he's setting this boundary later where he's going to say, Adam can come so far, but now I'm going to take Eve from him, and I'm going to, if you will, expand his boundaries. I'm going to expand his tent pegs, as they would say. Okay, that's pretty interesting to me. So God blesses them, and he says to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. We do not have a good sense of the enormity of that command. And it was a command. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it. Okay, so have sex a lot. Have lots of kids. Yeah, that's the Hebrew. Have lots of kids. Fill the earth. Fill the earth. So they're placed in this garden, and the garden it's not like without edges. It's a finite thing. It's got a hedge around it. It's a small space in a big world. A small space in a big world, and that small space has the government of God in it. How so? Well, God planted it. He set an edge around it, and then he put people in it to take care of it, to fill it, and to expand the hedge. To expand the hedge. We talk a lot about hedge of protection in the church. Oh, Lord, we just ask you to place a hedge of protection around our family as they travel. It's a good prayer. Where'd that come from? It came from the Garden of Eden, that hedge of protection where the outside of the hedge was wild. If you've ever read Eldridge's Wild at Heart, man, that is a good read, really good read for guys. Wild at Heart. But what it talks about is that men were created, Adam was created outside of the garden. And then we'll find out next chapter, then he was placed into the garden. So he's got an element of this wildness to him, an element of adventure. And then God puts him into this place of protection, under that hedge of protection, and civility, I guess, and gives him a job to be fruitful, multiply, and fill first the garden, and then the earth, and then have dominion. Now, dominion, what's that mean? That means everything that isn't another person, control it. Control it. That rhino is not to be in the tomato patch. You know why? Because we don't need spaghetti sauce that early. We don't. So we've got these rules that we need to implement. And the rhino, by the way, the rhino in the tomato patch isn't sin, but it is untamed creation. It is not a place where kingdom is yet having its way. And by kingdom, what I mean is dominion, God's rule. And God's ruling this little garden through Adam and Eve and his kids. That's our first implementation of kingdom. Heaven on earth. What was the Lord's Prayer? What is the Lord's Prayer? Give us this day our daily bread, right? That's the Lord's Prayer. But thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what God was basically telling Adam to do. I want you to rule this garden, and then we can talk about expanding the hedge. All right? So what a task. And we don't know how long that Adam and Eve worked at this before the inevitable fail, right? And he's saying, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You'll have them for food. a lot of people say, because of this verse, that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was off limits because it didn't have seed. It says right here, I've given you everything that has seed on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, you can eat of it. Therefore, what are we to assume about this tree of the knowledge of good and evil? The thing is seedless. It can't reproduce itself. It can drop fruit, but it can't grow another tree like itself. It takes something else, perhaps. That's interesting. All right, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, I've given every green plant for food, and it was so. Now, I know that we're going to get into, there's always those guys that hate the young earth. They hate the 7,000 years creation. They hate that idea because they think science rejects it. And their science does. But let me tell you something. Here's where I am. The Bible never has to agree with science. Science always has to agree with the Bible. Now, whether or not you understand the Bible well enough to reconcile it is a different matter altogether. But science doesn't come first. It is not the source of record. The Word is. So that's the way that we're going to go through this. And when you're talking about 6 days, we have six. When we're talking about everything is created in this week, it doesn't say there weren't gaps in the 6 days. I don't know where to go with that. When I think of this, I think of a literal week, a creation week, and that's how I refer to it. But that means then that, yes, there are dinosaurs living in the garden. The more you study on this, the more plausible that is. And that's just the truth, because I've studied it a lot, and it becomes more and more plausible. We talk about dinosaurs today. Are there any? Well, probably so. Very likely so, if you really pay attention to people that live in these really remote areas like the Congo. Very likely. Okay, so everything is eating cabbage. Can you imagine? And then why? Well, Steve, that makes no sense, because if you've ever seen a T-Rex skeleton, you know this guy isn't designed to eat cabbage. Well, for the first 7, 8, 9, 10 years of my life, I could swear to you that I wasn't designed to eat cabbage either, and I didn't eat any. But here I am, 50, and I'll eat it. So things do change. That much I can tell you. All right. Well, I'd love to hear your comments on this second session. I know we're pushing 20 minutes. So let me hear your comments. What did I miss? What questions do you have? I really enjoyed this. So I will catch you on chapter 2. And peace.